welcome Priyanka Chaturvedi, the other MP on our panel. Priyanka, we've been discussing some of the issues of trying to balance development considerations with environmental considerations. When we have projects in our states, Rajya Sabha has a long-term politician and parliamentarian, and Amar Patnaik, somewhat more recently, has been how they've been dealing with this issue of how to persuade the public that something which is good for development may be bad for the environment, and something that may be good for the environment may not have immediate visible gains, but would have other ones in future. Have you, in your own experience as a public figure, come across similar challenges, Priyanka, and have you found yourself dealing with resolving this dilemma?
Thank you so much, and apologies for joining late. I've been facing some network issues at home. As far as air pollution is concerned, I have said this at multiple occasions, that most people do not relate with the challenges and the criticality of having to ensure that we need clean air to breathe. It's only during certain periods in a month, in Delhi especially, when this is discussed. Whenever there is stubble burning, we discuss it, we are wearing these masks, we're talking about it, it becomes a talking point inside the parliament, outside the parliament. But once we are out of that phase, it is a forgotten chapter. And that is the unfortunate reality of where we stand today. We need to be able to talk to people and explain to them how important this is, whether in terms of deaths, whether in terms of the kind of air we breathe. It definitely needs to join and be linked with the political narrative of this country. I have said this many times, where we explain to them about fear, and because politics is about selling fear and also selling the idea of hope. Till you do not bring pollution, or you talk about climate change as part of your political narrative, till then we would not be able to even initiate discussions or to explain to people how important this is for our living and for our futures. Your migrations depend on it. Women empowerment depends on it. Incomes depend on it. And that will become the driving force for people to understand that it is far more critical than various other challenges that we are facing, whether it's hateful narrative, whether it's divisive narrative, or various other global challenges. So we need to prioritize that. And at many points, I have been told, because I speak about it a lot. For example, I would give you what happened in Mumbai when Aarey Forest was being cut down to size because they wanted to have a metro passing through it. We fought tooth and nail for it. Even Aditya Thackeray fought for it tooth and nail, because we realized that a city like Mumbai breathes on air like that, and we need the criticality of having urban forests in our ecosystem and sustainable development, where we keep our environment in mind every time we talk about infrastructure building. Is what we say is sustainable development is all about. Sustainable development, which many people unfortunately look at a roadblock to development or infrastructure building, is not how it should be perceived. So perception also needs to change, that sustainable development means that you're talking about infrastructure building while keeping the ecology in mind. And that is what we fought for in Maharashtra, especially in Mumbai, and we managed to do that. We managed to deliver. So till you do not make this as part of your politics, you do not prioritize this, you're going to face questions about how we look at these critical elements. And I would continue to say this till it does not become a part of every political party's manifesto. Till then, we can continue talking at such events and sessions and these closed door meetings without connecting with the larger public, until we don't tell the masses that if you do not support us in this, if we do not talk about this, you all are the ones who are going to be migrating, you all are the ones who are going to be jobless, you all are the ones who are going to have problems in terms of how we look at our futures, shared futures. So this is where we stand, and this is what my thought process on this particular issue is. Unfortunately, even the government, in terms of budgetary support, has, of course, mentioned it, has allocated some budget, but it is extremely small to be able to implement any kind of changes. And I would definitely look at innovation as the way forward, and creating an ecosystem through innovation process to be able to address these challenges.
Priyanka, you had introduced an important private member's bill last year, titled the Council on Climate Change Bill, which seeks to fill a sort of legislative lacuna on addressing climate change by establishing a body at the central and state level which would focus on tackling climate change and mitigating its effects. Interesting bill. It hasn't been able to make headway so far, but tell us about the idea. Could you elaborate more on the need for such a bill to be considered and its genesis in your thinking?
Actually, the genesis of this idea was the vision of Shri Aditya Thackeray, who's our environment minister in the state. And I'm sure he's going to talk more about it when he's in a discussion with you. When Amar was talking about integrated approach, that is how Maharashtra has chosen to work towards creating more awareness and the urgency and the importance of bringing this into the mainstream narrative. Rather than talking about it in the bylines, sidelines of the challenges that we face, we have mainstreamed it in the state. When I say mainstream, what is the integrated approach? We have introduced climate change in our syllabus. So our children need to understand the urgency and the need for us to create these changes and to have create a transition from how we are used to living to understanding what we are consuming, how we are consuming, and how it's impacting the entire environment system, the ecosystem. When we talk about creating an integrated approach, we are also looking at private-public partnerships and raising funds through private participation, incentivizing corporates and companies to be able to make that transition faster. We have started it from our own governments, where we have categorically said that we will only look at EV cars to buy. When we talk about public transport, mass rapid transport, we are switching towards EV as an option. And again, we are incentivizing people to change. To do this transition from the fuel-based cars to electric vehicles. Of course, the challenge comes of charging these batteries and how do we charge these batteries. So creating an environment where we are also speaking to many private players to be able to set up charging systems, creating charging systems in cooperative housing societies and making it more easier for people to make that systematic move. We are also, of course, working alongside the central government in whatever policies they have in place, whether we are talking about, when we are talking about public transport, FAME is one of the important drivers of this transition. So we're working alongside them. Most importantly is making it a political talking point. Shiv Sena is very committed to the idea of being able to have a better world for our next generations to come. And we're committed to doing that. So we've made it a part of our political narrative. It was part of our political manifesto. We created an EV policy, which is one of the most forward-looking policies. And even the vice chairman of Niti Aayog has complimented us for that. So that comes from a vision. And that is when we talk about the Climate Change Council. So this is where we have come till now. Climate Change Council would work a lot like how the GST Council works, where we have the state environment ministers, we have the state forest minister, chaired by the Prime Minister of this country. Prime Minister, simply because I think Prime Minister can be the driving force behind making these changes happen. Every state has its own environmental challenges. Odisha and we are facing similar challenges. So there are lots of collaborations that we can have together and work together. Now, in terms of funding, which has been a sore point, Dr. Patnaik and we were traveling just before the COP26, and we did realize that European nations have managed to prioritize this, have mainstreamed it, and they're looking at solutions, and they have technology, they have the wherewithal to be able to support India. But how willing is India to make the transition? Considering the Prime Minister has set some lofty targets, we need to create an environment where we are able to seek that help, seek that support, not just in terms of financing, but in terms of research and tech. And tech, I continue to insist on tech simply because that's the cheapest and the best way for India to find solutions. So that is where I come from, and Climate Change Council will be able to address all that, ideas coming from various states, solutions coming from various states, and implementation on a faster basis and on a priority basis by streamlining it.
We were discussing, I think, the bursting of crackers during Diwali, stubble burning, all of that. Now, one thing that some people have said is this is basically politicized air pollution issues. That making discussions around air pollution is crucial for greater accountability and more progress, etc. But when it gets politicized, when some people say, why are you attacking our Hindu festival of Diwali? No one is attacking Diwali. They're attacking the pollution in the air, but nonetheless that becomes a problem. And then the politicization of the issue threatens to derail the conversation away from sort of scientific and evidence-based solutions for tackling air pollution to something, unfortunately, more, shall we just say, politicized and polarized in our national discourse. Priyanka, what's your thought on this?
So till now, most of the time, the discussion when we start to discuss air pollution, many of it look at it as a class-based worry. But little do they realize that it is the masses who suffer the most. So those who are like us, people like us who are sitting, we can buy an air purifier, we can have this in our homes, we can have a mask, we can do everything to safeguard ourselves, our children, and we do our best that we can. We can move out of the city for a particular number of weeks to be able to breathe better air. Unfortunately, that's not an option for lots and lots of people who are working as daily wage laborers, who are working as migrant laborers, and who are working in jobs where they cannot afford to even look or aspire to have clean air to breathe. And I think that is the fight which is worth fighting for. And that is what the government model should be about, that we're reaching out to the masses and we're explaining to them why it is important to have clean air to breathe. Shorter lives, medical issues, health issues, migration issues. I've already spoken about it. Poverty we can be driven further into poverty. Women feeling more disempowered. If we do not fill that cannot have that discussion, we can continue to have this divisive narrative of, oh, Bakri Eid pe aap log kyun nahi bolte ho? Why is it Diwali which becomes a problem? You reduce it to a religion-based narrative. You reduce it to a political narrative, which is about us versus them. But this is not about us versus them anymore. This is about all of us and our ability to survive. And that, I think, till we as members of parliament, as elected representatives of our constituencies, do not take charge and do not push for building a political narrative out of it and partner with people who are equally concerned and create a mass movement. Till then, unfortunately, we will continue to discuss and debate this and not be able to educate the people at large at how problematic this issue is. And it is about the survival of the human race.
All four of us MPs, come from states, Bihar, Odisha, Maharashtra, and Kerala, that have unfortunately been victims of hydrological disasters such as heavy rains, floods, landslides, cyclones, and so on, which have all, of course, been closely linked to climate change. And as a result, they're likely to get worse over this decade, according to the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, which has published a report saying this. So building a climate-resilient infrastructure will become a crucial aspect in resisting and minimizing the impact of climate-induced disasters. So may I ask each of you to give one example of something you're aware of, ideally in your own state, ideally, perhaps even more ideally in your own constituency, but just say in your own state, where there is progress being made towards being climate resilient and mitigating these effects of climate change. One example, and if there isn't one thing that you would like to see happening in your state that would actually help mitigate this problem.
So all I'd like to say is I've already spoken about the measures that Maharashtra is doing. But the most important thing I think we have done and we managed to achieve is to mainstream discussion on environment and mainstream it to have a lot more public participation and even corporate participation in it. Having said that, something that Dr. Amar was talking about in terms of afforestation, I must share with you the report that had come, which kind of got the alarm bells ringing, was how Mumbai can go down under by 2015 if we don't take important and urgent measures. So one important factor that Mumbai is troubled with is with heavy rains that fall. And of course, every time we are trolled for it because of the roads getting flooded, parts of Mumbai getting flooded. What little people realize is that the amount of rain that we see in a short duration is way higher than many other parts of the world and urban cities of the world. Yet we are managing to, ensure that the infrastructure doesn't come to a standstill. Of course, it's a long journey for us, but we are working towards it. The most important factor was the mangrove land, which was getting encroached upon, and mangrove land which was getting destroyed for the infrastructure building, etc. We have put a stop to it. We have ensured that Shri Aditya Thackeray and the Chief Minister, who himself is also extremely climate sensitive in these issues and policy making, we declared that as forest land, and there can be nothing that can be done. And we are also using high-end technology to see that there's nothing that is encroached upon. We are keeping in mind that technology helps us understand that where are the areas that we need to work upon, where we can work better. So we are using a lot of technology to be able to address these challenges that Maharashtra faces. And we are facing all kinds of weather patterns in Maharashtra. So we understand that, and basis of which we are creating an environment which is mainstreaming all these issues and making people aware that we are all at stake here if we do not take urgent measures towards achieving the targets that the Prime Minister has set for us in the COP26. Maharashtra will be leading that.